Okay, Pinky, are you ready for this?
Uh-huh. Party cannon all set. Weapons ready.
Hi, and welcome back to Fandom Fridays. Why? Where we check out all the fanfics that are not pony related. Why? Because, well, sometimes even us diehard bronies need to give those four legs a rest. Right now, I'm sorry if you're keeping quiet. It's just that we're running a little test here in the studio. Since Avengers is coming in 2 weeks, we decided to make sure that everything is all set and ready to go for the big celebration. And Pinky's right now testing her party BOOM cannon. A little too much there, Pinky.
Sorry, Trixie.
But while they're all doing that, let's talk what's been going on the past few weeks, Sally. We've gotten some more Flash episodes, which have proven to be awesome. And we also gotten a few great series in the form of Daredevil. Yes, after watching 4 episodes of the Daredevil from last week, I can truly say that thing has been awesome. The darkness might not be to everyone's taste. It is a definitely more adult superhero story. And I mean adult as in some more darker and serious things. In my opinion, it's doing what DC Universe's films are trying to do, but aren't doing as well as this does. Also, the origin stories are well done, the characters are great, and it just flows so spectacularly. It's a really good dark tale, and I really do recommend for those of you who want a good dark, serious, and more adult superhero tale. So, do honor checking out Matt. Let's break out a Daredevil fanfic. I think I got something here, and oh, this looks pretty good. Join us, won't you, as we here at the Treeberry Memorial Library and proud to present Jackpot. Jackpot by Esther Chana. First chapter, only chapter. Jackpot. On an evening like this, Foggy wondered whether faking his death had only assured that he would die of boredom long before he had to worry of dying of cancer. Sure, Matt had assured that the safe house was equipped with a satellite TV, a floor of DVDs, and a state-of-the-art computer with internet and on-demand streaming media. It was only so long he could stay cooped up, no matter how large and comfortable the coop was. Nobody actually up and said he wasn't free to come and go as he pleased. They just asked him whether he thought it was wise under the circumstances. These days, Foggy had tried his best not to hate Matt for doing this to him. He reminded himself that when Matt had told him that he was planning to reveal himself as Daredevil, Foggy had encouraged it. No. Once he understood Matt's motivations, he demanded it. Even when Matt had pointed out that Foggy would be in greater danger, at a time when he would be ill-equipped to deal with it, Foggy insisted that Matt go through with the idea, rather than compromise his integrity, even for an instant. It made Foggy feel, just for a moment, like the man without fear he told Matt to teach him to become, to better cope with his condition. Stupid idea. Stupid Matt for listening to him. Tonight, when the chemo wasn't knocking his stomach out for a loop, when there was no pain on the side of his cheeks to scare him into thinking he was the verge of developing mouth sores, or worse, mouth ulcers or infections, when he could put a decent amount of food on a plate and actually have the appetite to finish in one sitting, he wanted to do something else besides watch other people on a screen. People who, unlike him, got to go outside, or visit friends, or just enjoy life. He tried dropping in on Matt at the office earlier. He had taken the precaution of dying in disguise first. Matt had been out, but Kristen had read him the riot act. Foggy was still trying to figure out whether he had been more annoyed at her for the reception, or himself for thinking that either she or Matt would approve of his being out at the safe house, disguise or no disguise. On an evening like this, he seriously had to ask himself why he still put up with everything Matt put him through. San Francisco had changed. As Daredevil swung through the mid-market heading for home, he was momentarily disoriented by a tall edifice that, going by the balconies, appeared to be an apartment complex. It hadn't been here the first time he had passed through the area nearly a decade earlier. It wasn't as quite as confusing as he found the new construction around San Francisco General. He hadn't realized just how much he relied on both the empty space and the sense of trees and grass and other vegetation to help him get his bearings. All that was gone now, replaced by chain-link fences and iron girders. Transbay Center, Mission Bay. The list of changes went on. When had those two-story flats on Dolores been replaced by mid-rises? What had happened to S&C 4 auto sales? As he headed along Valencia towards 16th Street, he realized that something else was missing. The tequilas that were aromatic as ever, but where was Bombay Bazaar with its heaty fragrances and spices and incense? He swung upwards and did his best to ignore the fire that sliced through his abdomen where the owl had slashed him earlier. The wounds were long, but shallow and superficial. His suit had borne the brunt of the attack. Still hurt like hell, though. As Daredevil slowly made his way north, passing quite a bit closer to street level than he used to after years of sailing between skyscrapers in Manhattan, his mind was focused elsewhere. He had gotten angry tonight. Angrier than he had been in a long time. He couldn't shake the feeling that, regardless of provocation, and he had been plenty provoked, he ended up kicking a man when he was down. As his body relaxed into the familiar rhythm, rising and dipping through the air, as he swung through one building to the next, Daredevil's mind began replaying his last conversation with the Shroud. It hadn't gone well, truth be told. It had been more of a lecture on his part, or a one-sided argument. Too bad nobody had been on hand to object. Earlier, he told the Shroud that he had low tolerance for bullies. That had been an understatement. Truth was, he hated bullies. But more than that, he hated saying and doing things that made him think he was becoming one. Needs his words sprang out to mind. He who fights monsters should be careful lest he thereby become a monster, and if thou gaze long into an abyss, the abyss will also gaze into thee. If he still had his eyesight, Daredevil wondered, what would he see? Were he to gaze into that hypothetical abyss tonight? His imaginings were not comforting. He came to a halt at the edge of a rooftop, and realized he wasn't sure where he had gotten to. He stood still, concentrating, probing for sensory clues. There was a salt tang in the air, the smell of the ocean, mingled with those of garlic, oil, and potatoes. He recognized the combination, and realized where he had to be. He shook his head in disbelief. Somehow, he got it mixed up, gone east instead of west, and ended up all over the way at AT&T Park. He couldn't remember the last time that had happened. It never would have happened in New York. He knew that city far too well for any of that nature. He probably could have found his way from the Harlem River to the South Street Seaport in a blizzard with a head cold, though now he was just glad he had never put that subsistence to test. He was even more riled than he thought. Or maybe he knew that he was feeling this tense. Going home to an empty house was the last thing he should do. He was subconsciously denying the inevitable. He felt a pang of guilt, remembering that Kitten had told him that Foggy came by that afternoon. He'd been annoyed, truth been told, and he had been too, for all of 5 minutes. He knew from bare personal experience what it was like to spend weeks shut away from the world. Since he moved to San Francisco, Matt had gone by the safe house when he could, but in enforced isolation it would be hard on Foggy. How could it not be? Daredevil retraced his steps to the opposite side of the rooftop. He paused for a moment, calculating the best route to get back to the Pacific Heights. If he hustled, Foggy would probably still be awake. There were times that Foggy wished that he and Matt could trade places. He asked Matt once, right before the diagnosis, to let him experience the night the way Daredevil did, practically flying through the air, more than 100 stories high. His life hanging by a slender cord fired out of a collapsible billy club. It had been terrifying. It had been insane. It had been incredible. So incredible, in fact, that when Matt had deposited him, sweating and shaking, through the office window onto the floor of Nelson and Murdoch, the only thing he had been able to say in response to Matt's inquiry was how he didn't like it. It had been. Again! He'd been preparing himself for the worst that night, bracing to hear the worst news possible. He had the crazy thought that coming face to face with his own morality, while hurtling toward the pavement from the roof of the gravescraper, would prepare him. Of course, armed with certain knowledge that Matt wasn't going to let anything happen to him, had made that night fun, as well as scary. So, in retrospect, it had been a very good preparation for hearing the diagnosis after all. And he really hadn't wished that he and Matt could trade places. He wouldn't wish his current condition on his worst enemy, let alone his best friend. But he wouldn't mind getting a bird's-eye tour of San Francisco. Okay, just this once. San Francisco! He was tempted to go to bed early, but he did that often enough when the chemo treatments knocked him for a loop. It was almost perverse to turn in at this hour when he wasn't feeling ill. Instead, he sat on the couch, flipping idly back and forth between reruns of Simpsons and Night Court, and sometimes episodes of My Little Pony, until he heard a sound on the roof. For a moment, he tensed, wondering whether one of Matt's old enemies had found him. Then he smiled at the familiar tapping sound of the skylight window over the upstairs hallway. Sure enough, once he climbed the stairs lit up, in the moonlight, he immediately recognized the familiar white cane with the loop at his top resting on the glass. Cane, not Billy Club. He headed to the bedroom, walked briskly to the casement window and fumbled the latch. You know, he muttered as he pushed open the window. I've got a door, and you've got a key to it. No need to shout out to the roof, when Matt could probably hear him whispering from a block away. He took a few steps back to give his friend a little room. He didn't have long to wait. Red-gloved hands gripped the top of the window frame, and a moment later, Daredevil swung into the room. It was in my jacket pocket, he said. The jacket of the suit you aren't wearing, Foggy sighed. Fine, I'll bite. So what's so urgent that you had to pop in here in costume and couldn't wait till tomorrow? Daredevil didn't answer immediately. Instead, he lowered himself onto a Foggy's desk chair and pushed his cowl back, wiping a gloved hand against the brows with a sigh. If this is about my showing up at the office today, Foggy started to say, I'm sorry. Matt come off. Huh? Matt's cursed lips turned into a faint smile. I think the most appropriate phrase for this situation involves Muhammad, a mountain, and a hypothetical. Foggy, sorry. I think the camo saved off a bit of bulk there. These days, I'm probably more like a hill, maybe a tree. He frowned. Hey, what's wrong? Matt didn't answer for a moment. He unscrewed the end of his cane and carefully extracted a pair of dark glasses and put them on. Then he took a deep breath. I know I haven't been coming by as often as I should. That's on me. While popping in on you after 10 at night isn't exactly making up for it. I figured I could still check you if you were awake and up for some company at this hour. Oh! Foggy said with a smile, was quickly replaced by concern. He hadn't seen the look on Matt's face since their last office Christmas party, right before the whole grave robbery business had gone down. Let's go downstairs. I'll put coffee on. Matt nodded. You still have that Braille Monopoly game? He asked. Foggy blinked. He brought that game months ago, although Matt could read text with his fingertips. The title cards were in the standard game, printed on Delassie Gostock, were a problem. Matt had appreciated the gesture, but he seldom had time to sit down long enough to play. Yeah, he said, his face brightening. I think I could find it. He knew exactly where it was, in fact. Are you sure you got time enough to hang around for a full game, though? Matt hesitated. I can, he said finally. That is, unless you'd rather not be up this late. He could afford to be. Matt was the one who needed to be well rested tomorrow. If he was going to meet the clients during the day and then put the costume back on at night, of course he might also put the costume on if he got bored between appointments, or if armed terrorists turned up and tried to take the entire courtroom hostage, or if the presiding judge turned out to be a secret Skrull, all of which were in the realm of possibility. Matt? What does this say about your existence? Where one of the options for your life is a possible alien! And yet, here was Matt, stopping by after patrol, as though none of that was important. Gee, Foggy said, maybe I should drop by the office more often. Matt flinched, and Foggy was immediately sorry he had made a wisecrack. Let's set it up and see how it goes. He smiled relenting. After a quick smile, and nod from Matt in return. At first, their talk, or more accurate, their vocalizations, centered mostly on the game. Matt groaned when he rolled a 4 out of the gate and landed on income tax. Foggy bought Connecticut. Matt bought the electric company. Double 5 sent Foggy to New York. Double 2 to Indiana. And a 6 and 5 landed on Pennsylvania Avenue. P.S. They are playing the Tony Stark version of the game. When Matt Street brought him Pennsylvania Railroad, he groaned again. You're not switching out the dice for a repair, are you? Sorry, Matt, Foggy grinned. You're making these rolls fair and square. He tossed the dice again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 200 for pass and go on 6. He held himself to 2 bills from the bank. Would you care to make sure I'm taking hundreds, not 500s? He asked, holding out the bills for Matt to inspect. Matt waved them away. 7, and I will purchase Mediterranean. Thank you very much. Matt made a face. B&O Railroad, double 5s, he said, his fingertips phrasing the rate stats on the dice. Here. He passed over 500 and collected his change. Next roll. He read the results and sighed. Go to jail. Foggy chuckled sympathetically and took the dice, then onto the table, then bounced the roll to the edge of the board. Hey! Roll reversal time! I'm on just visiting. Matt looked stricken. I wish there was more I could do to make this place seem less like a... I know. Foggy come off, intensely contrite. I don't mean to complain, really. It's just, on an evening like this, I like to be able to get out and do stuff, you know. Matt nodded. He picked up the die. Try for doubles? Foggy asked. This early in the game, you should just pay to 50 and go. No, Matt said, making the throw. I can tough it out for a bit. Appreciate the solidarity, Foggy shot back, taking his own role. But you just had to meet St. James Place. He frowned. Hang on. You're not letting me win, are you? Matt shook his head. No, at all. I think I probably used up most of my luck earlier tonight, though. Oh! Finally, Foggy had been wondering when Matt was going to open up. Matt went for a double again and failed. The owl has set up shop here, he said slowly. In order to infiltrate his headquarters, I teamed up with someone local. He considered his words carefully. Better reticently when Foggy landed on, in Purchase, Kentucky. He made his third attempt at doubles, and, when it failed, placed a 50 at the center of the board. It joined the 500 that Foggy had been taken from the bank, and led back down to the start of the game, the 150 he had added earlier for landing on income tax. He added it up to what had been two of them, and he reflected as he moved his token back to Pennsylvania Railroad. Free parking would have been a jackpot square in the official worlds, too. A vigilante named Max Coleridge. He continued. The shroud. What's this? He put the bill from Foggy's hand, a proud 50. Pay attention! I just ended up a B&O, Foggy said. Technically, I don't have to pay rent if you don't notice when I land on your property. Ah, he made his roll. He moved his shoe to his hands. And, frightened when he read the card. Advance to St. Charles Place. I know I'm passing go, so... Yep! Foggy reached for the bank. 200, and less 140 for Charles Place. You are buying it, right? Matt nodded. So, 60 in the title deed, if you don't mind. Foggy passed him over. As he shook the dice between Cliff's hands, he said, That doesn't sound like a bad idea. I mean, he probably knows the sea better than you do right now. He does. Matt nodded. But he had his own agenda. He picked up the dice and took his turn. Not surprising, Foggy said. People generally do. And he was... Matt threw the dice a bit harder than he should have, and one bounced off the table and rolled on the floor by Foggy's feet. Hang on, he said, reaching down. I got it. Roll again, he said, dropping the die into Matt's hand. Thanks. And to answer your question, suicide. Pardon? Matt chuckled both dice in one hand. I suppose I could find a less dramatic way to phrase it, but that's what it boiled down to. Taking on an adversary he knew he couldn't beat, banking on that factor to pull him out of his misery. He'd been through a lot. Orphaned as a kid, trained as a warrior, cost him his eyesight. Must have been looking at a funhouse mirror and seeing a distorted version of you, Foggy said. You know the half of it. He took the roll, and paying Foggy $14 for landing on St. James. He had a number of serious losses over the last little while. Things I can relate to. Except, when I figured out what he was trying to do, He shook his head. His voice lowered to just below for whisper. I lost it. It pretty much came down to me saying I've had it bad too, but I never got to the point where you are. His shoulders slumped, as if that was some reason to feel superior. You know how conventional wisdom has it that bullies usually last out because of self-esteem issues and needing to make the other people feel small so they can feel big? I've heard that. Foggy admitted, taking his turn. But hasn't that theory been debunked recently? I don't think so, Matt said. By which I mean that folks used to believe that there was one main reason why bullies bully. Now that you think there are more. In my case, though, I think the first one was dead on. You mean when you were a kid? Foggy broke off. No, you're not talking about what you went through, are you? Matt dropped the dice, but didn't take their toll. Instead, he folded his hands on the table and rested his hand on the crook of his elbow. Life was sticking a knife into his gut. I twisted it. Unconsciously, Foggy leaned toward him. Matt continued. Now that I've had time to think about it, I think I did lash out because I realized how close I had come down to going Max's path. Waking up to what I did during Shadowland almost did it to me. It was like Max was me if I had done one more wrong thing at that point in. Again, Foggy's thoughts flashed back to the office party. He found Matt sitting in his office in the dark, familiar look on his face. The one that had been absent for some old time. Foggy started commenting on how much he looked. Like the old Matt? Like the tortured, guilt-ridden, self-destructive punching bag? Like the friend and partner I knew best? Yeah, I hate that guy. Matt sighed. Lashed down like it was every inner demon I tried my best to go beyond. Yeah? He burrowed deeper into his elbow. Great. Hey, Foggy said. You got the owl? Yeah. Matt raised his head. You get this Shroud guy for killing himself? Yes. You know, you are allowed to let yourself feel good about the parts that went right tonight. By this time, the lips switched turned to a smile, albeit fleeting. I was doing some thinking on the way over, Matt said, about how easily that could have been me. Foggy nodded. But there, for the grace of God, Matt shook his head. No, well, yes. Obviously, he had something to do with it. But down here on Earth, I don't think I've made it this far for this long, for this much, if you weren't around to help me back when I started heading down that route. He folded his arms and extended one hand across the table toward Foggy. You've been keeping me grounded for a long time, buddy. Tonight, I gotta look at what my life would have like if you weren't. He took a breath. After an evening like that, I felt like I had to come around and say, thanks. You're welcome, Foggy managed. Then, sent the conversation back to the less intense ground. Still your turn. Oh, right. He tossed the die, both men forgetting that he had already done so, and moved forward. Hey! Foggy exclaimed. You hit the jackpot! Matt smiled and reached for the cast at the center of the board, but as he did, Foggy distinctly heard a murmur, my first semester at Columbia, when they were matching up roommates. On an evening like this, Foggy knew why he still put up with everything Matt put him through. But between the two of them, they were still going to have to come up with a way he could get out more. You know what? That was a really soft and sweet story. How about we all follow it up with something cute too, huh? Something from the last section of the world. Here we go. So, Treeberry Memorial Library presents Extra Story. Dr. Wells Saves a Kitty by No Spilled Blood. Chapter 1. Harrison Wells was not having a good day. His entire morning and afternoon had been spent helping clean up Star Labs after one of Cisco's experiments had set off the sprinkler system and thoroughly soaked the entire lab. Then, after discovering for Gideon that Mercury Labs had developed a new piece of tech which could be of use to him, he had suited up as a Reverse Flash costume and headed over to acquire it. It had been a disaster in the attempt. The item he had needed had been shipped out to an undisclosed location the previous day. He couldn't find a trace of it in their systems. Even worse, on his journey back to Star Lab, his speed had begun to act up. He had been forced to divert into a dark alley to allow it recharge. He pulled his headpiece off, ran his hands through his already messed up hair, and sighed softly. He was not having a good day, and all he wanted to do was return to his house, open up a bottle of very expensive whiskey, and relax. He was musing on this idea when he heard it. There was a small mealing noise coming from the gutter in the front of him, and he stepped forward to investigate the small ball which was emitting the noise. Wells picked up the ball by the scruff of its neck and examined it closely. It was a black kitten, kind of dirty and obviously abandoned, as it had no color. He placed it back on the ground and watched it as it immediately began to start shivering. Wells sighed deeply and scooped it back into his hand, and vibrated strongly enough to generate some heat for the little thing. It began purring instantly, and he couldn't help but give it a quick pet behind the ear. He placed it gently back on the ground and leaned against the alley wall. He had to get back to Star Labs, change his outfit, and also work some way to strangle his AI for giving him out-of-date information. He was pulled from his fancy by the kitten attacking his shoelaces. He watched it for a few minutes until he finally managed to undo the laces of his right shoe. The reverse flash finally vanquished by a tiny kitty. Shoo now! He nuzzled with his other foot, and he swore the kitten looked up to him before sliding down a pouncing position and lost itself in his leg, digging its claws into his left calf. Wells hissed and snatched the kitten to eye level again. He growled at it and received a small growl in kind. He smiled despite himself. The little thing had spirit, and he could appreciate that. Maybe Star Labs could do a new mascot. He cut the kitten close to his chest and disappeared into the night, leaving a trail of red as he went. Chapter 2. It was Cisco who first discovered the cat at Star Labs. He had been down in the pipeline checking on one of the containment cells when he felt something latch onto the back of his arm. Naturally assuming he had been attacked by a escaped metahuman, he screamed to the high heavens and spun around. The weight disappeared as he saw a small black thing drop to the floor a few feet away. It took him about 30 seconds to realize that the item was a kitten, and he was instantly filled with guilt. Oh, man, he thought. I just lost the damn kitten. I am the worst kind of human. His heart was still racing like crazy as he moved towards the animal. He mouthed at the cat and laid down while extending his hand in petting motion. The cat glared at him suspiciously. Before inching towards the extended limb, Cisco heard footsteps running up behind him as the kitten raised its hand. Cisco! Caitlin cried as she saw him lying on the floor. What happened? So he suddenly saw as he looked at the black kitten, which was now sitting comfortably in Cisco's palm. Is that a cat? Yeah. he replied, before confessing sleeplessly. The kind of attacked me, and I panicked and screamed a little. He stood up with the cat in one palm, his other hand rubbing the back of his neck. Kitten couldn't keep her laughter in any longer. He exploded out as he took in Cisco's still mightily stark appearance, and the tiny kitty he was holding. Aw, Cisco, I'm sorry. She started as he laughed. That is just too good. Whose cat is it anyway? Cisco looked thoughtful and replied, I have no idea. We should take him upstairs to the main lab and see if Liz or Betty know. Caitlin nodded in response, and the two laughed. Dr. Wells and Barry were in the middle of discussing new ways to keep their pipeline metahumans occupied when Cisco and Caitlin appeared. I'm not totally against the idea. Is that a cat? Barry cut himself off as he spotted the Doodle and their tiny companion. He danced over and began to pet his little head. Barry loved animals, and would take any opportunity to pet one, since his life was a bit too hectic to keep one as a pet. I take it he's not your cat then, Barry? Cisco asked. We found him and hiding in the pipeline, and then he attacked me. He did not attack you, Cisco. Wells interrupted. That was just his way of saying hello. Barry, Caitlin, Cisco, I'd like to introduce you to Tesla, the laser distant to Star Labs. He smirked and extended his hands to Cisco, who deposited the kitten gently into them. Wells immediately began to pet the kitten, as the others gave him a surprised look. What? He said dismissively. I like cats. Caitlin stifled a smile behind her hand while Barry said, it's just weird. You just don't seem like a real animal person. I am human, Wells replied wryly. Plus, I appreciate the independence of cats. They're spirited little creatures, and this one has a surplus of that particular feature. Wells nodded, down to the cat, which was now trying to whip off one of the buttons of his black shirt. Tesla, then. It's a nice name. Caitlin smiled and bent down to have her first strike at the little alien. Welcome to Team Flash, little Tesla. The end for both our stories. Okay, let's talk about Dr. Wells' Daisy Kitty. To sum up, oh, my heart! Oh, darn you, fanfic writer, that's just too cute. I want to pet her. I want a cat. Sorry, this live reader is a cat person, and he will take that to his grave. Somebody once said, sometimes life stinks, but cats do exist. And I take that with pride. Oh, and I rarely say this for Pony, but except for stuff that involves ponies, but I still want this to happen in an episode. I don't know if it will, but I still want a subplot of one of the team adopting a kitten. Shortly, I got nothing more to say character-wise, or building, or in depth. Everybody was in character, etc., etc. This was just cute. Very short and sweet and adorable. Sometimes you kind of need that in this hectic life. In the end, for the story, the moral is, adopt a kitten. It could save your life. Just like how many times just like my little Eevee farm that I've adopted. Ain't that right, girls? Oh, you flared, shout! Vaporeon! As for the second story, well, one of the things that I always do love is when you have a fanfic demonstrate a good relationship, especially friendship. And this fic does a good job of doing that. One of my complaints about the Daredevil movie was that it didn't do much with Foggy, and after watching the live-action Daredevil series, I feel like Foggy's relationship with Bat is grossly understated. Mainly because it seems like having a good friend like Foggy could really help Matt a lot. So this story showing the two brothers working together, not the two brothers, but showing the two friends being close to one another, just kind of felt good. But more than that, this fic also kind of illustrated something else about fanfics. That, yeah, sometimes these fanfics, especially when it comes to comic books, do reference things that have happened in the comics over time, but have you noticed about the continuity? Beyond some of the things you people might be curious about, you didn't really care. You just came here to watch Matt and Foggy grow and support one another, to mention how they care about one another and how close they are as friends. And that's something that fanfics do really well. Is just try to tell you a story that really doesn't rely too much on continuity. I guess that's one of the reasons why ponyfics have been so good for me lately, and I really enjoy a good ponyfic. Is that with the way that with the slice of life episodes set up, you could really have the main six go off on any type of adventure, come back, and don't really have to worry too much. I mean, the only time, really big times you have to worry about continuity is Treeberry and Twicorn. But beyond that, there's very little else. These two stories does demonstrate what happens when you just want to tell a good short story, especially one that doesn't involve kittens and a game of Monopoly. And well, folks, I'd just like to say that tomorrow I am going conning, and I'm going to go D&D with the original creator, with one of the original creators of D&D himself. Wish me luck. I might not be making it back for this one. But until then, I'll be enjoying the next stories. That's one down, several more to go. I'll see you next time.